clear. And yes, as you may have just heard the automated message, the meeting's being recorded. I assume that doesn't cause anyone any difficulties. It's what we usually do with AGMs. So I don't know if we're going to put the 2023 minutes on the screen, but in any event, they've been circulated ahead of the meeting. So I'm going to just turn to those minutes now. Does everybody have those in front of them? Or some shaking heads? I might just see if I can quickly share them from my screen. Okay, so you should see them on the screen now. So I'll quickly go through them to see if anybody has any amendments they think need to be made to these draft minutes. So the first section, the welcome section, just shout if you have anything, because I may not see your image on screen, so putting your Zoom handle up might not work. So just take yourself off audio if there's anything you think needs to be changed. So section 1, the welcome. Section 2, minutes of the 2022 AGM. Section 3, the chair's report. Section 4, the finance report. Section 5, vote on adoption of the annual report and financial statements. Section 6, update on the work of TCF.
They'll take it in English, American, or
and section 8, AOB, and then reference to the guest speaker and close. Any amendments to make? No. We'll vote on those in a second. Just want to see if any matters arising from those minutes.
And then we'll round it up and make it.
There's a voice in the background.
Yeah, that's my end. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll go back on mute as soon as I can. Okay, so no matters arising. So Carolyn, can we have the vote up on the adoption of those 2023 minutes? So if everybody could just do the obvious.
What, a proposer and a
Yes, sorry. Formally speaking, Millian, would you like to propose the
Yes,
adoption
can
of
I
the minutes?
propose the adoption of these minutes for 20?
Thank you. And can we have a seconder?
As soon as we get there, I'll let you stand.
Sheila? Thank you. Everybody has voted. I'm pleased to say the minutes are formally adopted. So I can hand over to Millian, who's going to present our chair's report and update on the work of trustees.
Good morning, everybody. We currently have 12 trustees. We meet 4 times a year in January, April, July, and October. And this year that we've just finishing, in November last year, the 2023, we decided to have an away day to bring together staff, trustees, and some volunteers to discuss everything that we do at TCF to develop a new strategy. It was a very good day and very good to have everyone together. So we put together a number of documents which we've been looking at over the year and developing a 2024 to 2027 strategy. One of the key elements of that strategy is developing our fundraising, improving the quality of what we provide and the capacity that we have to provide. We also, so that was a very important piece of work. We had a second away day with some trustees and staff in March, and it has been very helpful for us to work with trustees, to work with staff in that way. The second important piece of work that we did was that we appointed an HR company, Econo, and we worked with them for a year, looking at all our policies and procedures, and every policy has been reviewed, and we've written new ones, all of which have now been adopted by trustees, are being used. And that was a very useful exercise. They first of all did an audit of what we have, and we worked through all their recommendations and completed that work in July. And now we use Connor to support, if necessary, or whenever we need HR help. So that was a very useful piece of work. The other thing that we worked on this year specifically was diversity, equality, and inclusion. We drew together a policy which we all agreed, and we had a training session in July for staff and for trustees together. And we'll be following that up with further training during the course of this coming year. This has been a very important piece of work, and has enabled us all to discuss and debate the importance of diversity, equality, and inclusion in everything we do. Sorry. We also, as a trustee group, break into smaller groups, and we've looked at diversity, equality, and inclusion, but we've also looked at membership, we've looked at the strategy, and we report to each of the trustee meetings. We also agreed that, or are proposing that Margaret Brearley, who was a former trustee, former chair of trustees, but her term of office came to the end in January of 2024. And we wish to put forward a proposal that she becomes a patron of TCF because of the enormous amount of work she did when she first became chair in 2014, the support she gave to the staff, the developments that she oversaw. So we would like to make her a patron of TCF. I'm going to ask George to add to what I've said.
Thanks for that, Amelia. I think the most significant thing I wanted to mention, which people may have seen announced at the end of 2023 already, was the fact that Hugh McIninch from TCF Scotland was awarded an MBE in the King's New Year's Honours List, and that was for services to bereaved parents and their families in Scotland, something that Hugh has been active in for more than 30 years since the death of his son Christopher. TCF was delighted to see Hugh honoured in that way, and congratulates him again. The other point I just wanted to mention, which came out of the strategy review that Amelia mentioned, is that we're undertaking some work to review the way that membership of TCF works. Now, some of this is a bit legalistic, some of it is more oriented on how members and supporters should be recognised in TCF. And one of the trustees, Sefton Kwasnick, is going to be leading work over the sort of coming months to work out the best way forward, and hopefully we'll be presenting that at the next AGM so that we can deal with what's a slightly messy situation at the moment and find a way that works better for the charity. So those are the two things I wanted to add. Thank you, Amelia.
I think we next move to Sheila to give the financial report. We have looked at, we have had, as Sheila will describe, we have had a difficult time earlier in the year, but over to Sheila to give the details.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to report the financial results for the year 2023 to 24. In April 2023, we began the new year with a carefully prepared budget based on our strategic plan and having upgraded our accounting processes with new accounting software. We also appointed new bookkeepers whose remit, among other work, was to provide monthly management accounts, enabling trustees and our CEO to review timely financial information, especially in an economic climate which was more challenging for fundraising. Midway through the year, it was clear that income was not keeping pace with our budget. We prepared a revised budget in September 23 and reduced our expectations of income for the second half of the financial year. Although income for the year did exceed the revised budgeted income, we still had to draw down on unrestricted reserves from the previous year to support total expenditure for 2023 to 24. Reserves are the unrestricted funds carried forward from one financial year to the next. We need reserves at the start of the financial year in order to be confident of continuing the work of the charity. You will see in the finance section of the annual report that our policy is to have at least 4 months of funding in hand based on the monthly cost of salaries and other expenses. So how much income have we had in 2023? I know you've all got a copy of the annual report and accounts, and if you look at page 18, you'll see the figures that I'm going to quote. So total income for the year 2023-24 was 385,181. And that compares with 2022 to 23, the previous year, when we received 488,834. So you can see that it was a challenging year for us. Total expenditure for the year 23-24 was 572,415, and that compares with 2022-23, and the figure there was 567,343. So very similar expenditure from 2022-23 to the year that we're now reviewing. As previously explained, we had to revise our total budgeted income for the year 23-24, and we reduced the figure from 430,100 to 315,100. However, our concerns about the income stream were somewhat lifted with the actual income received exceeding the budget by £70,081, making that total, as I've quoted, of 385,181, for which thanks go to our fundraisers and to you, our donors, who listened and responded to our message for help in raising further financial support for the continuing work of TCF. So a bit more explanation on the income for the year 23-24. You'll see on page 18 of the report and accounts that income received is recorded as unrestricted or restricted. Unrestricted income is derived from a number of sources, mainly general donations, grants, subscriptions, fundraising events and other activities. And total unrestricted income received in the year was 268,322. You can see that figure in the first column on page 18. Restricted income is donated for particular projects or types of peer support work. It's important that restricted funds are spent according to donors' wishes, and our accounting system is geared to ensure that expenditure from restricted funds is accurately recorded. On page 28 of the accounts, under note 16, this shows that of the total income we received in the year, 116,859 was restricted for the project or type of support detailed in that note. Restricted expenditure totaled 118,809, resulting in a drawdown from the balance brought forward from the previous year of £1,950. So now turning to expenditure for the year, and here I'm talking about unrestricted and restricted expenditure. On page 18, you'll see the figure of total expenditure, 572,415, and the comparative figure being 567,343. This figure is broken down, and you'll see on page 18, into fundraising costs, on which we spent £84,884. This figure includes staff salaries, office and admin costs, and costs relating to fees payable for registration to take part in fundraising events. The line item charitable activities includes all the layers of the peer support which TCF offers. And you'll see the detail of that in notes 7 and 8 on page 24. And there we have spent in direct costs £379,961. And this figure includes salaries and event costs. And then the support costs, £107,570. And this is where the cost of our premises, the rent and so on, office costs, general expenses are recorded. So that brings that back to the total of 572,415. I've already spoken about expenditure from restricted funds. Expenditure from unrestricted funds only amounted to 453,606. So the drawdown from unrestricted funds brought forward from 22-23 was 185,284. So in that year, we didn't receive enough income to cover all expenses in the budget, and we had to use funds brought forward from the previous year. So at this March 2024, the funds carried forward for 24-25, i.e. the year we're in now, are as follows. The unrestricted funds balance was 170,815 and was down considerably, as you'll see, from the previous year when that figure was 356,099. The restricted funds balance, which we brought forward into this year, was 52,446, very similar to the previous year. So total funds carried forward into this year were 223,261. So how are we doing in the current financial year, 24-25? So trustees are really aware that unrestricted reserves figure of 170,815 at the beginning of this current financial year is much lower than the previous year, as I've already said. The income that we've received in the first 6 months of this year, 1st of April to 30th of September, The budgeted figure was 230,803, but our actual income was 319,506. So already we're feeling a little easier in that the income we've received in this first half of the year has been more than we budgeted. But of course, we have to manage what we're thinking we're going to get for the next 6 months and hope that we do keep receiving income at this pace. Our total budget for the year is 437,000, whereas expenditure is budgeted at 542,739. So even if we achieve our original budget of 437,000, we still need another 100,000 to achieve a balanced budget. You will see from the annual report that the work of TCF is essential and valuable for bereaved parents, siblings and grandparents. So I would close my part of this meeting by saying to you, please continue to support our fundraising, together with raising the profile of the Compassionate Friends. We are thankful to you, our donors, and to our volunteers. TCF's peer support is only possible because of you. Thank you. If you have any questions, there will be time at the end to raise any particular things that come to mind. And the questions that you ask, I will try to answer on the finance, but if I don't have answers straight away off the cuff, then I'm very happy to talk to you afterwards by email or such thing to answer any questions you've got.
So next on the agenda, I think, is the auditors. Is that correct? I haven't got the agenda in front of me. George?
Yes,
I
it
think
is. Yes,
Warren is going to talk briefly about the auditors.
Yeah, that's correct.
When do we lay the accounts before the members?
After this,
After this.
Carolyn's spoken.
Okay, fine. Okay, so hello everybody. Can you hear me? I hope you can. I'm Warren Weiss. I'm a trustee and the company secretary. So I've been asked to address you on the question of the external examination of the charity's accounts by professional accountants. At this stage, the trustees would normally ask the members to approve the trustees' choice of an independent reporting accountant. Charities of the size of TCF are required to obtain an independent examination by a reporting accountant once a year. Now, that is not, strictly speaking, an audit, although it's often referred to as an audit. The independent examination, to give it its proper name, actually gives us a lower level of assurance than an audit does. But it's all that we're required to do because we are a small charity. Having said that, the trustees have decided that for the year ending 31st of March 2025, the current financial year, we will have a full audit, even though we're not required to do that by law. And that is in order to give us a greater level of assurance about the accounts. The audit is going to be put out to tender, and the present reporting accountants, who are called Burton Sweet, they have been invited to take part in that tender, and they have confirmed that they're happy to participate. The trustees' choice of auditor will be put to the members in due course, I think at an EGM, which is an extraordinary general meeting, and the members will then be asked for their approval of the choice of auditors. That's it. I hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you, Warren, very much indeed. So we move now to Carolyn's report.
I think Stephen is next on
Right.
fundraising.
Oh, Stephen, apologies. Stephen, your fundraising report, if you would, please. And you've done great work for this year, so thank you in advance.
Thanks very much, Melian, and hello everyone. Good to see you all again. And I'm just going to share my screen, so bear with me a second. I thought it might be useful to show what fundraising looked like pictorially, diagrammatically, maybe is a better word. So it just breaks down to show where our income comes from. And you can see on the right, the big blue area, which is nearly 50% of last year's income, ending 31st March 2024, was mainly made up of grants. And by grants, we mean primarily from grant-making trusts and foundations. And when Sheila talked about restricted income, the bulk of our restricted income would come from those grants. So it's, and that the grants we've received has grown considerably since I started in 2017. And it's now a hugely important part of our income. The next bit in orange at the bottom left there is fundraising. And by fundraising, that's primarily from those events or activities which are put on solely for raising funds. So it's things like when somebody holds a coffee morning to raise funds, somebody runs in the London Marathon, they participate in the Serpentine Swim. They do all sorts of activities with the primary aim of raising funds. And then the next bit in grey is donations. And here, donations hasn't been broken down. So this includes donations from individuals. It also includes donations from the corporate sector, as well as donations from community organisations such as faith groups or Rotary clubs or the Catholic Women's League, organisations like that. So that's another very important part of where TCF sources its income. And then the yellow bit at the top is from people leaving a legacy to TCF in their will. And this has increased a little bit over the last few years as we've been slowly dripping the message that when people come to think about their will, that they kindly consider putting TCF in their will. And so that's grown a little bit over the last few years. And then the bit right on top, the slightly lighter blue color, is from people sponsoring the leaflets which we produce on all aspects of child loss. So and that remains fairly static throughout the year, because we only reprint leaflets every now and again. So these are some of the challenges which we faced in 2023, 2024, and the economic downturn and uncertainty combined with the cost of living crisis certainly affected us. And, you know, it meant that in terms of grants, for example, it meant what several trusts did was to divert from their normal criteria for giving grants and concentrated solely on relieving the cost of living crisis for people, which meant that we weren't really able to apply to a few of the organizations where we normally would. And donations from individuals and community organizations were fewer and smaller as people felt and organizations felt that they weren't able to contribute quite so much as before. And we found that there are fewer people undertaking events for us, either in terms of running or holding a coffee morning or something like that. So that combined meant our income shrank last year. It was a harder year for us to continue to raise the funds which we wanted to. And it's interesting, Sheila mentioned that we're ahead of our target this year. And we are, I think at the end of November, for example, we'll be about 120,000 above where we were last year. So the recovery has materialized in 2024. But recently I've been talking to other funders, and also things which have come through into my inbox in my email have said that they were hoping that this recovery would continue for the next 12 months, but now there's more uncertainty again, partly of the effects of the election in the US, partly because of the recent budget that was held here in the UK, and that the poorer longer term economic outlook for the UK is not so great. So there is still a great deal of uncertainty. So we'll have to take this forward as we go into the current year and beyond. I've also got down here that the second point was the policies of TCF, and it affected us a little bit. A couple of trusts felt that at the time, for example, our policies weren't really in line with what they thought should be suitable for them to award us a grant. So I'm so thankful to my colleagues and the trustees for working so hard on the policies over the last year, because it now meant that we're fully in line with what trusts and foundations expect us to have. So that is no longer a problem. And the last point I had there was Jenny left towards the end of last year as our community and events fundraiser, but we're delighted that Annabelle has joined our small fundraising team. And then just a little bit about how you can help. So in the next few weeks, you'll see on social media and everything that we're taking part in the Christmas challenge again by the Big Give in December, where you can times your donation by 2 as part of that campaign. And so look out for that. We'll be putting information up very soon about that. If you're having a birthday coming up, you can raise funds on Facebook to support your birthday if you wish to do so. Easy fundraising is a way which people can shop from their normal suppliers, and then a small donation will come to TCF, and that's grown considerably over the last year actually, as more people seem to shop online anyway. And if you fancy doing a challenge yourself, then we have lots of events coming up. Keep an eye out on social media and we'll have that there for you. And then One Step at a Time next May, towards the bottom there, that's going to be a fundraising walk which we're holding throughout the UK. So again, we'll be keeping you posted on information on how you can take part in that. And then the last bit is, if you are thinking of creating a will, please think of us when that time comes to create your own will. And that's it really. If there's any questions, then please let me know, and I'll be happy to answer them at the end of the meeting.
Thank you very much, Stephen, and great work has been done this year. A difficult year, I would think. It has been for us, but for many charities, as Stephen has explained. So I'm going to ask Carolyn now to give us her report for the year 23-24. Thank you, Carolyn. Carolyn Bryce, our CEO.
Thank you, Melian. Good morning to everybody. It's great to see you here. Thank you for your interest in the sort of workings or the operations of our wonderful charity. Before I present the annual report, I just want to take a few moments to introduce you to our staff team, if that's okay. Some of you may know them, some of them, and others have joined us more recently, and you may not have met them yet. So unfortunately, we've only got time for them to just say a brief hello and who they are, but hopefully it will give you an opportunity to see who, or to know who is responsible for running our charity. So as you know, I'm Carolyn Bryce, I'm the CEO. I think Ruth, you said you would go next.
Hello everybody, my name's Ruth and I'm the volunteer and helpline manager for TCF. Thank you.
Yeah. Jo?
Hi everyone, my name's Jo Kittrick and I'm the helpline coordinator for TCF.
And then Shirley?
Hello everyone, I'm Shirley Gower and I'm the Grief Companion Scheme Manager for TCF.
Thank you. And Suzanne?
Hello everyone, I'm the Grief Companion Scheme and Volunteer Administrator for TCF.
Thank you. And Sharon?
Hello, I'm Sharon Rose. I'm the Events Manager for the Compassionate Friends.
Thank you, Sharon. And David, are you here? We can't hear you, David. We'll see you. I'm sorry, we can't hear you actually. We can't hear you very well. Or see you. Don't worry. So that was David O'Leary, who's our Data and Administration Manager. So if you contact the office, you'll often speak to David. He's on his way to Gatwick at the moment. That's why he's can't be seen or heard. And then Stephen, you've heard from. Do you just want to say hello again, Stephen?
Hello again, everyone. Yeah, I'm the head of fundraising. I've been at TCF since 2017, I think it is.
Thank you. And then last but not least is Annabelle.
Hi, I'm Annabelle. I joined just in the summer as the events and community fundraiser, but I've very recently taken on social media and communications as well.
Thank you, Annabelle. And thank you everyone for introducing yourself. And I just wanted to say we're also fortunate at Compassionate Friends to have the help of Karen Ivy on a freelance basis. So Karen helps with office and sort of helpline work and sends out lots of the bereavement support packs that we post out to people, to newly bereaved. And also Abby May, who's not with us today, but Abby looks after our leaflets on a freelance basis as well. And she has a volunteer who helps her called Liz Farmelo. And then also I just wanted to mention Mary Hartley as well. Some of you may know Mary generously runs our wonderful library as a volunteer. So thank you to all for introducing yourselves and the roles you play in our team. So in my section today, what I plan to do is share something about the general situation of the charity and the environment in which we operated in the financial year 23 to 24. I'll outline some of the basic but vital services that we offer, and also pick out a few highlights of the year. And I'll finish with a brief look at our plans for 24-25. So as you've heard, after 2 years of growth at TCF in both our infrastructure, staff, systems and so on, and reach, really, we've moved to a year of consolidation of services during 23-24. And this was really largely due to the economic and political conditions which we've heard about, including the cost of living crisis, high inflation driving up costs, and the aftermath of the pandemic, where funding moved from bereavement support during the pandemic to more cost of living causes, as Stephen mentioned. It created a challenging funding and operational environment for the charity. So like many charitable organisations, as you've heard, we experienced an overall decrease in donor income, particularly from trusts and foundations, and a drop in income from challenge events and individual giving, all while our costs continue to increase due to inflationary pressures. We also experienced some additional challenges as well, created by difficulties in recruitment and retention of volunteers during that year, largely due to the aftermath of the pandemic, really, and sort of change and the challenges of cost of living for many individuals. So that changed the priorities for some of our volunteers. So we therefore chose in 23-24 to concentrate our scarcer resources on our core services and areas of particular need. We rose to this challenge, though, and we kept up our wide range of services, supporting over 10,000 bereaved parents and 1,300 bereaved siblings during the period of the report. And to give you an idea, approximately 16% of the parents we've supported were bereaved by suicide, around 12% by cancer, 14% by sudden illness or accident, including road traffic incidents, and 3% by substance or alcohol use. So I'm just going to share a slide now, if that's okay. If I can make it work. There it is. There we go. Can you all see that? Yeah. So I'm just going to briefly go through some of our sort of core areas of support that we offered during the period of the report. So our national helpline continued to be the usual point of contact, first point of contact for a newly bereaved parent. 19 trained and supported bereaved parent volunteers offered empathic listening and support by telephone, which was open as often as possible, 365 days a year. During the period of this report, over 1,200 calls were received, a similar level to the previous year, when we had already experienced a 33% year-on-year increase in calls. 760 requests for email support were received during the period of the report, and they were all obviously answered by the helpline. The trend also continued of increasing requests from professionals and support agencies during this period, including GP practices, counsellors, mental health workers, and organisations offering specific support who wish to signpost a parent to TCF support. And inquiries and referrals continued from wellbeing or the social prescribers, often based in GP surgeries, and also mental health team representatives. In terms of our local groups, we had 84 facilitators and co-facilitators who offered support groups for parents in well-facilitated, safe and confidential environments in over 70 locations throughout the UK. And some of our volunteers also offered one-to-one telephone and in-person support to grieving parents in their locality. We ran 38 online support groups, which were run for parents in specific circumstances and also for bereaved adult siblings. And each were facilitated by at least 2 trained volunteers. Online support was also supplemented by our 12 private moderated Facebook groups and a web-based forum, offering opportunities for parents bereaved in specific ways to share together and find connections. Moving on to our retreats and support days. During the period of the report, 390 parents and siblings attended retreats or support days all over the UK. And these were planned and delivered by a team of volunteers with staff support. The programme for each retreat, as some of you may know, as you may have been on them, included talks, workshops, sharing sessions, creative, active and memorial sessions, and other supportive activities. Bursaries were offered to any bereaved individual who would have been unable to attend without financial assistance. During the year, we experienced an increase in applications for this financial assistance as bereaved parents and siblings were impacted by the cost of living and other economic challenges. At the same time, the cost of venues and travels increased, and we found that we were required to subsidise the cost of in-person supportive events to a larger extent than before. So it was a pressurised year, as you've heard. A programme of supportive walks in the UK continued to develop. A team of 25 volunteer walk facilitators offered walking and talking opportunities around the country, from London to Merseyside, Cumbria, Suffolk, Wales, Shropshire, South West England, and many more places. A total of 45 walks were held during the year for bereaved parents, siblings and grandparents. And support was offered to volunteer walk facilitators through regular sharing sessions. Our postal library continued to offer parents, siblings and grandparents a personal service of books and resources to support them after child loss. Each set of books sent out are handpicked by Mary, our volunteer librarian, to match the experience of the bereaved individual. During the year, we had available in digital and print format over 60 leaflets and fact sheets offering information and support to bereaved parents and families, as well as professionals and family supporters. Updates of existing publications continued our objective of ensuring our publications are inclusive and reflect the diversity in the population of bereaved parents and their families. This year, the year in question, our leaflets went through an audit process to develop further inclusivity in terms of readability and diversity, including more accessibility to minority communities. During the year, we also made changes to some of our other publications. So we combined all our newsletters into one newsletter or one magazine called Compassion, and it incorporated TCF News and information for siblings too. The new format has been generally welcomed as being more convenient in larger, easier to read fonts and formats. And we are now sending our publications like Compassion in digital format to all bereaved parents and their families. And these publications, I feel, are a really important layer of support for all and are now much more widely available than before. So next, I would like to share some of the highlights of the year 23-24. I only have time to pick out a very few out of all the peer support, all the many peer support activities. So please forgive me if I haven't managed to include the support that perhaps you were involved with or participated in. So as part of our plan to engage more men in peer support, in October 23 in London, we organised our first support day for bereaved fathers. 30 bereaved fathers spent the day together talking, sharing about their grief, their loss and their children, and supporting one another. They participated in a discussion group, they heard from speakers and took part in a walk together. We had amazing feedback from this first day. Words like the day was extremely well organised, really offered a really comfortable balance of reflective discussion opportunities and less structured chances to socialise. I found it a very supportive day, an opportunity to reflect on some of the issues around my bereavement, which after nearly 5 years, I may be pushed into the background sometimes. So lots of wonderful feedback. So we ran our second Bereaved Fathers Day just last month, actually, in October. And this time 40 fathers attended. And our plan is to continue these days and try to move them to different parts of the UK. The two photos on the left are of the 23 Bereaved Fathers Day. And the photo on the right actually is from the most recent Bereaved Dads Day. And we were fortunate, it's the volunteers who helped on that day. And we were really fortunate that we got the free use of the Armourers Hall in the City of London to hold that day. They're one of our funders. Second area that I'd like to highlight, sorry for all the text on here, but it's just some of the feedback we've received for the Grief Companion scheme. And this is a scheme managed by Shirley Gower, assisted by Suzanne Cannon, which offers one-to-one peer support to newly bereaved parents, and it's funded by the National Lottery. So a Grief Companion, for those of you who don't know, is a volunteer who offers telephone or email support to a more recently bereaved parent. Typically, they offer this support once a week for a period of up to 12 months, although this can vary according to need. So since its inception and up to March 2024, the scheme supported over 293 parents in very early grief. And obviously that's more now, as we're in November 24. During the period of the report, there were 60 active Grief Companion matches going on. The Grief Companion and newly bereaved parent are usually matched, taking account of the combination of circumstances of their child's death, the age of their son or daughter when they died, and their general life circumstances. And our volunteer and helpline manager, Ruth Mercier, and Grief Companion manager, Shirley Gower, really worked very closely together to ensure appropriate support was put in place during the period of the report for newly bereaved parents, and where it was felt that this type of one-to-one peer support would be beneficial. And approximately 75% of the matches were continued for a full 12-month period of support. The existence of this service and the volunteers ready to offer peer support has meant that we could get help to parents very quickly compared to some other organisations and services. And here you've got on the left with the blue, round with the blue, some feedback from newly bereaved parents who were supported on the scheme during that year. And then on the right with the yellow around it was a comment from one of our volunteers who is a grief companion. And we find that volunteers also benefit from the grief companion role. Many of our volunteers tell us that being able to support and offer empathic listening to another grieving parent has helped them with their own grief for their child. So the third area I want to highlight is support for volunteers. And we have really grown and developed this support and training for our wonderful 300 plus volunteers. As many of you here are volunteers, you will know that being there for others can have an impact on our own well-being as we listen and are alongside other stories of loss and grief, many of which can be traumatic, complex, and very raw in the beginning. As the reach of the charity grows and as bereaved family members are finding us at an earlier point in their grief, sometimes on the day of the death or certainly before the funeral, this can all contribute to volunteers' own grief and well-being being impacted at times. And volunteer recruitment intention, as I said, retention also continued to be a challenge during the year, an issue affecting the charity sector generally. So Ruth, Shirley, Sharon and I continue to prioritise and focus on supporting and encouraging self-awareness, self-care and helping our volunteers to build resilience. The year before this, we ran some resilience workshops for our volunteers between October 22 and January 2023. And we are also running another set of resilience workshops, wellbeing workshops for our volunteers, which started in September and continues to January. But throughout the year in question, we held monthly volunteer sharing sessions to enable volunteers to share and learn together, to understand more about the different support roles within our charity and to support one another with common challenges in volunteering our peer support. We also provided sharing sessions for volunteers in specific roles, for instance, walk facilitators or those volunteers who are moderating our private Facebook groups or forum. And we continue to offer a whole volunteer meeting online every 6 months where volunteers can share the challenges and positives of their volunteering role and be supported by one another, stay connected and hear from speakers from both inside and outside the charity. These sessions are facilitated by TCF staff team members and are very much led by our volunteers' concerns and needs. And volunteers have told us that they appreciate being able to support one another and they feel less alone with the support they are offering by meeting together regularly with the wider volunteer team. And just we also offer, we offered during the period of this report and we continue to offer listening support service called Here For You, which is available to all active TCF volunteers. And this offers our volunteers 3 50-minute confidential therapeutic sessions by with 1 or 2 qualified counsellors, both bereaved parents with volunteering experience with TCF. The sessions are free to our volunteers and conducted online, usually or sometimes by telephone. The service is available to all volunteers to talk about the impact and challenges around supporting others and for when they're perhaps feeling less resilient, either related to their volunteering role or their own grief or personal lives, or simply to talk confidentially with someone who understands their peer support role. During this year, over 30 listening support sessions were taken up by our volunteers. And you can see some feedback on the slide. As a new volunteer, the wonderful support and encouragement I have received from TCF enables me to be there for others. And that's really what our volunteer management team of Shirley, Ruth and Sharon and myself are aiming for. We also, during the period of the report, put together a new volunteer agreement with guidance from the NCVO, the National Council of Voluntary Organisations. This was developed in the autumn winter of 2023 and in place in January 24. And we asked all our active volunteers and any new volunteers to sign this, to read and sign this agreement. The new agreement ensures that guidance for our volunteer team is up to date and accurate, and that protections are in place for them and the charity. This is part of a wider drive to continue to develop the best practice and help volunteers know what to expect from our charity and what we ask of them. And just to say that next year, as part of our support for volunteers, we are planning to hold 2 volunteer overnight retreats, so one night to bring our volunteers together in the north and the south of the country for well-being and training and sharing together. So just the final area that I want to highlight from the report is our support for adult bereaved siblings. In the year in question, we were incredibly fortunate to have a core group of committed, trained, bereaved sibling volunteers offering high quality peer support. We achieved our target of reaching over 1,300 bereaved adult siblings by the end of March 24. And we offered 2 supportive in-person events for bereaved siblings during this period, an overnight retreat in Birmingham in April 23, and a support day in Sheffield in September 23. And we also provided regular online support groups for adult bereaved siblings. And to add to that, the well-moderated private Facebook group for siblings continued to grow in numbers, and this offered a forum for bereaved siblings to connect and find understanding together. So finally, we've developed some key objectives for the current year, and we will continue to give those prominence as we go through this year. So we've got a very strong focus on fundraising, as you've heard from Sheila and from Stephen, and now I'm going to say as well, that we really need to focus on bringing in the funds to continue to do the work that we do. So we'll focus on all aspects of the fundraising mix to ensure that we do have the funds available to continue and to develop our work with bereaved parents and their families. And we will continue to try to diversify funding for the charity. We'll continue our focus on the quality of peer support, and we'll do that by inducting, training and supporting our volunteers to the very, very best of our ability. And then we will we plan to improve our capacity support. So we'll continue to develop our infrastructure and our staff where needed, and if we can afford it, and our capacities to our capabilities to widen, extend our capacity to reach out and support in a wide range of communities and locations. And how we plan to do that is in the sections of the annual report, pages 10 to 12. So thank you for your time this morning. Let me get out of there.
So
thank you for your time this morning. I just wanted to finish. I hope I've given you a flavour of how our charity's vital work with bereaved parents and families has been the last year. There's so much more in our annual report, so please, I hope you feel free to read it for more detail and information. As you can see, that despite our drop in income last year, our staff and volunteers continue to work hard to offer a whole range of peer support. The prospects for 24-25 look better, but I hope you listen closely to our fundraiser, Stephen, and will think about how you can perhaps raise funds for this amazing charity that can be a lifeline for so many, including myself and perhaps all of you here. I just wanted to finish by thanking our hugely committed staff team who introduced themselves to you earlier. They have been incredible, just so instrumental in everything we achieve as a charity. They, of course, work closely with our amazing 300 plus volunteers, all of whom use their experience of traumatic loss to be alongside others. They are the real providers of the peer support we've been able to offer. I also want to thank the trustees who support us all to do this work and help to continue to ensure that this is a safe, professional and well-run organisation that always puts the best interests of our beneficiaries at the forefront of our thinking and planning, and our volunteers right at its heart. I'm really looking forward with enthusiasm and commitment to the coming years at TCF. Thank you.
So, on behalf of trustees, you've heard the massive developments that have gone on this year and all the support that's being given. So I want to thank, on behalf of all trustees, Carolyn, all the staff and all the volunteers for the work they do, that Carolyn's just outlined to you in great detail. So thank you all of those of you who are here, but we like to pass that on to all the volunteers who may not be here. So thank you very much. It's a very comprehensive development, I think, over the year of TCF's events and activities to support bereaved parents and siblings. So thank you. So I'm just going to introduce the current trustees oversee everything that.
Sorry, just to interrupt, Melian, we need to
have a vote.
Lady annual report.
Thank you.
And
so let's do that.
Vote to adopt it. Yeah.
Over to you, George, to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Just very briefly, because I'm mindful of the background noise I'm inflicting on everyone. Thank you very much to Carolyn, to Stephen, to Warren and Sheila for an excellent set of reports. Can somebody propose the adoption of the annual report, which I'll put on screen now?
George, I will.
Thank you. And a seconder?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Thank you very much, Jen. So if we could have the vote come on screen, and if everyone can do the needful, that would be fantastic.
Everyone voted?
Yep, I think that's it.
Oh.
Okay, so that has passed. The annual report is adopted with its financial statements as presented. Thank you very much. So I'll just hand back to Melian.
So
we can deal with the election of trustees.
Yeah, I'm just first of all going to can we? Okay, it would be good if each of our trustees could just identify themselves before I give you the information about the vote, the election of trustees that took place. So you've met George and myself, who are the co-chairs. You've also met Sheila, who is our treasurer. And so I'm just going to call the names of the other trustees so that they can identify themselves briefly. So there's Jill Hardy. If you're here, if you could just identify yourselves. Is Jill here? Jen Hughes, who's just spoken, who is here. Sefton, I'm not sure if you're here, Sefton. Ken Barkley, I think, has been ill, so I'm not sure whether he's here. Adele Brenner,
Hello, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Brent. Great. Alison Cramp, I don't know if you're here. Nisha Shah. Warren Weiss, who we've seen. And Claire Coveney, who withdrew from the trustee board last month because she's moved and has a new job and decided she was not able to give us the time that she wanted, but we're really grateful to her for the work that she did. And she has been a trustee for 2 years. So thank you to Claire. And Nisha has also stood down. I'm not sure if she's here. So 3 of our trustees had to put the names forward for a further 3 years. And that was George Byrne, Sheila Phillips, and Jill Hardy. And they were all re-elected in this round. We now have 3 new trustees, who we welcome and delighted. We've got Jackie Hewitt. Jackie, are you here?
I'm here. Hello,
Brilliant.
everyone.
Welcome. We'd
Thank
love you just to say a word or two about yourself as a new trustee, newly elected.
Thank you. It's a great honour. Yeah, I know some of you. I'm Jackie Hewitt. I'm a bereaved mum. I lost my eldest son, Guy, in 2017. He was 22. He died of an overdose. And the Compassionate Friends has been a huge support to me. And over the years, I've now also transferred to be a volunteer. I'm a co-facilitator for one of the online groups. And I now feel really honoured to be in the position to give more back to TCF. And I hope that my experience, I work in a senior operational position with a medium-sized mental health charity. I'm a qualified counsellor and I've developed my career in that charity in an operational line. So some of the transferable skills I have are attracting and retaining volunteers. We work with Big Volunteer Group, developing policies. I sit on the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Steering Group. I've worked on many proposals for commissioned funding. Those are just a few of the things that I hope that I have valuable experience to bring to the Board of Trustees. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Jackie. We're delighted that you've put your name forward and been voted as a trustee. Karen Chandler, are you here?
I am. Hello. Hello.
Hello. Welcome. Would you like to just introduce yourself? Give yourself.
Yes. Oops, sorry, talking over you, the joys of Zoom. Yeah, hello everyone, I'm Karen. I don't know anyone, although I know your names, lots of names from lots of things. I'm really delighted to be elected as a trustee, and thank you very much, whoever voted. My son Janny died suddenly in 2013. He drowned, and of course, like all of us, my world fell apart, and TCF became and remains a real lifeline in learning to, and I hate this phrase, but learning to kind of live with my new reality. So yes, I've been asked to say what I bring to the party, so to speak, and I ran a similarly sized charity for around about 9 years. I was the chief officer. Then I went freelance. I'm a consultant and a trainer. It's really interesting, some of the stuff you're saying about equality and equity and resilience for volunteers. For example, I run a training course called Self-Care for Social Care that maybe we can talk about, Caroline, because that's all about developing resilience and tools. I'm currently also a director of a community interest company that supports people with additional needs through the provision of a care farm. So another, or pretty well all of my recent 20 odd years has been working with people with additional needs, which again, be very interested in that inclusion side and accessibility. But I think more than anything, I'm the sort of person that is never afraid of looking stupid, asking questions. So I think that's the big thing I bring to the party. I'm the one who says, I really don't understand that. Can you explain? Which is often useful. Although you said there was a Q&A session at the end, and I've got no questions at the moment. So there will be lots. But I suppose most of all, I bring Janny alongside me in this new role, and like all of us in everything that I do. So thank you. That's me.
Well, thank you very much. We look forward to working with you and you working with us. That's great. And thirdly, Antonio Bruno, are you here?
Yes, most people call me Tony.
Okay, Tony.
And when they hear my name, they don't necessarily expect me to be speaking with a Yorkshire accent, which is where I'm from originally. I'm really delighted and honoured to be elected as a trustee of TCF. I lost my son, my 15-year-old son, Jamie, to suicide in 2017. At that time, I decided to give up my corporate career, the thing I've been doing for, I guess, nearly 40 years at that point, mainly in sales and marketing. And I established with my wife a foundation in Hong Kong, which is where we were living at the time, to provide really fundraising services for a local mental health charity. So we established fundraising events and raised very substantial amounts of money over the past 6 years that all went to a mental health and suicide prevention charity in Hong Kong. I now spend about half my time in Hong Kong and about half in Cheltenham, which is where I live. I hope to be able to help with some level of fundraising. I'm not sure how transferable the work we did in Hong Kong is to the UK. You obviously appreciate it's a very different place, but I'm sure that some of the concepts and ideas and thoughts are transferable. And I'd welcome the opportunity to contribute some of my ideas and thoughts. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you all and working with you over the next few years. Thank you.
That's tremendous. We look forward to working with you too, with all three of you, Karen and Jackie and you, Tony. And there'll be plenty to do. We'll look forward to using your skills, which are amazing. So thank you very much. So I'd like to thank also all our trustees, current ones, who have been working with us this year. A lot of time and energy, but I think, as you've seen from Caroline's report, we're responsible for all aspects of TCF and the charity. And we have great teams, a great staff team, great number of volunteers, and a great trustee board. So thank you to everybody. I think we're now going to open up and enable you to ask questions or make comments. So if any of you wish to do so, please could you indicate? George, I think I'm going to hand over to you now.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything they wanted to raise? Tony, you have your hand up.
Yes, and this may just come from ignorance, being my first meeting and not having had a great involvement with TCF previously. It's on the fundraising side, actually. When you talked about restricted funds, can maybe give some examples of the type of programs that are restricted and what sort of grants we get for those restricted funds?
Stephen, do you want to
you're the
answer
obvious
that?
one to field that one.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tony. We emailed each other, didn't we, actually recently? So
we did indeed, yes.
So
Just a couple of days ago.
Thanks for your question. Yeah, so I guess a big example of that would be the National Lottery funding of the Grief Companion Scheme, which is, you know, they specifically funded that particular project. So therefore, those funds have to be restricted to the costs of that Grief Companion Scheme. And other areas might be where sometimes trusts and foundations have a geographical focus. So we might, for example, get funding for East Anglia, the West Midlands, or a certain county, indeed, depending on the size of the foundation. So therefore, the trustees and the bookkeepers keep those funds separate in line with the budget which I sent to that funder, and we can see how the funds have been allocated to that particular resource.
Or sometimes, Stephen, they're for specific areas of work, like I work with parents bereaved by suicide or
yes,
parents
exactly. Yeah,
bereaved
sorry, yeah.
by cancer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We get specific funding.
Yeah. Yeah, so Tony, it tends to be either a particular project like Grief Companions, or an area of work like supporting parents bereaved by suicide, or a geographical location. Those tend to be the 3 areas of restricted funding.
At this point, I think it's really important that we thank all our funders who keep us all going, as well as thanking Stephen for all the work you do with the funders to ensure we get funding we need.
Tony, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I assume that you can allocate a little bit of the sort of overhead costs to each restricted program as well. Thank you.
Yeah, that is right. I mean, in running the finances of any charity, there's a desire to have a maximum amount of unrestricted funds, for the obvious reason it makes it easier. But as Stephen explains, those restricted funds can be very important. You know, the National Lottery funding of the Grief Companion Scheme was incredibly significant and has been a big part of what TCF's been doing in recent years. So we should absolutely don't turn away from those restricted funds either.
Can I just say something about that as well?
Go.
Tony's question, we do allocate core costs or overhead costs, and previously we've done that sort of at the end of the year because we have a much better accounting system now, bookkeeping system, we're starting to be able to allocate those overheads, you know, core costs to specific areas of work as the year goes along, which is is a really good way of, you know, viewing our finances. Wouldn't you say, Sheila?
I was going to say, can I say something, please? Yes, that's actually the real point is when Stephen applies for funding, he gives the donor a budget, and included in the budget will be the direct costs, but also costs of the staff person who's responsible, some of the, you know, ordinary things like admin and office costs. And so our system is that when the budget has been offered to a donor, we then take that into our accounting system and are able to record the costs as the year goes on, according to what we've said to the donor, so that at the end of the year, it's not difficult to say, thank you very much for your funding, and this is what we've spent it on as per our agreement when the budget was offered to you. So yes, we are very careful and have a good system in place now to manage that point.
Thank you, Sheila. Does anyone else have a question or observation they want to put? No. Fantastic. To see everyone here today. I think unless anybody tells me I'm wrong, I think we've covered all of our business. Very grateful again for you making your time available on the Saturday to attend this online AGM. Once again, just wanted to thank Carolyn, Stephen, Warren, Sheila for their excellent reports. And thank you again to all of the volunteers and staff at TCF for the fantastic work that they do. And just to reiterate, congratulations again to Hugh on the MBE.
Who is here.
Thank you.